turned out because the older buildings have an old wastewater system that actually the design and the material used is less structurally safe. We're finding in Hawaii they're only lasting 50 years. So in some cases less than 50 years. So the reality of it is boards need to put more time in looking at a reserve study. They need to look at putting a realistic plan together that not only covers their operating costs, because all associations do what we call zero-sum budgeting. You look at the operating costs, look at the reserve contribution, you add that up and multiply it by the percentage of common interest. But if you're wrong on the operating costs and you're wrong on the reserve study, why would you not experience these problems? I'm an expert in a case right now, believe it or not, that the board took great pride that they hadn't raised their maintenance fees in 13 years. Now, does that make sense to anybody here? Because there's inflation every year. They didn't raise it in 13 years. You know how they covered the costs? They reduced this huge project from its reserve contributions to a total for 700 units to $5,000 a year. Now, does that make sense to anybody? You know, but they have this, some boards have this view that their goal is not to raise maintenance fees, but under the statute, their goal is to preserve and protect the asset for all the owners' protection, because what's going to happen when all of a sudden you have the assessment? I can't tell you how many lawsuits I'm engaged in where new buyers bought in and now there's a special assessment, and they're suing the board, driving up the director and officer liability costs, because we as boards and management companies and everyone has not done an adequate job of looking at realistically the situation we're in and putting together a plan using all the modern capabilities to work your way back in and phase yourself back into it. But you have to admit and address we're in a tough environment right now. Inflation's gone through the roof. Our reserve studies are likely, I've always guessed it's about 75% of the condos have reserve studies that are improperly funded. That's my guess from having done hundreds of these reviews. So we just have to start realistically looking at this, because you're not going to be able to get mortgages if your property is not maintained. You're not going to be able to have peace in your home if the building is falling apart. So we need to have a new attitude on the part of boards and the owners, and we need to start working together, looking at the modern capabilities that exist in reserve study public policy. Where you have deficient reserves, you can work your way back into it and get yourself back on the right path. And then part of that's got to be, you have to have adequate insurance, and you have to have the strength to tackle the deferred maintenance you have and put it into a plan to deal with it appropriately. So I could talk more about this, but I see people drawing guns and bows and arrows out there, and angry with what I'm saying, and I would have been across to Delaware again. But anyway, so I would just encourage you as a property manager or a board, you have to address deferred maintenance. You have to put together a realistic plan. You have to look how you're going to fund that plan, including the proper level of insurance, because it's going to be critical to the long-term life and the value of your property. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich.